Before we begin, the defendant has asked permission to make a statement to the court. Bring the defendant in. Damon, what are you doing here?
Good to see you too, Archie.
I'm just here as a servant of justice to make sure all this unpleasantness is sorted out. I appreciate your support, Damon, but we're quite capable of handling things here.
Don't mind me. You wouldn't even know I'm here. I'll just make myself comfy.
Now, Miss Skye, I believe you have something to say before court resumes.
Your Honour, can I request that the court does not resume? I have confessed to the crime, and the evidence has supported my confession. I would like you to give your verdict now and stop wasting the court's time.
Lana, no! Your Honour, you can't take her seriously.
You're my attorney, Mr. Wright. Your job is to follow my instructions.
Not if you're going to do something you'll regret for the rest of your life.
In that case, I no longer require your services. You're dismissed as my attorney.
But Lana...
Your Honour, if you would.
That is most irregular, Miss Skye, although that can be said for the whole case. In the circumstances, though, it seems I have little choice. The court finds Lana Skye...
Objection!
Mr. Wright, you're no longer Miss Skye's defence attorney. You cannot speak on her behalf.
It wasn't me, Your Honour.
Mr. Edgeworth?
Your Honour, the prosecution has not yet proven its case beyond reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this point would be premature.
Worthy, why don't you be a good boy and shut up?
As I suspected, Your Honour, it has become clear to me that some kind of deal has been struck behind the scenes, and I have reason to believe that the Chief Prosecutor is trying to deceive this court. To prevent that, I'd like her last statement to be stricken from the record, and to eliminate her right to self-representation.
That's a serious allegation, Mr. Edgeworth. I hope you're prepared to substantiate it.
I will, Your Honour, in the course of today's trial.
Mr. Edgeworth, surely you must realise that this is pointless. The trial is over, and in your favour. I think you should let this go.
I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. We're gathered here in this courtroom to find the truth. So unless you wish to leave your fate entirely in my hands, I suggest you rehire your attorney.
Very well.
In that case, court is in session. Mr. Edgeworth, I assume you're ready?
The prosecution calls its first witness, Emma Skye.
No!
And if the defendant interrupts again, she will be removed from the courtroom. Will the witness please state her name and occupation?
My name's Emma Skye. My occupation is, well, I'd like to be a scientific investigator.
Now, Miss Skye, you understand that you will be asked to testify about the events you witnessed during the Joe Dart killings.
I do.
Emma, you don't have to do this.
It's my choice, Mr. Wright. If my testimony can help Lana, I have to give it.
May I proceed, Mr. Wright? Very good. Your Honour, the witness has already submitted a written statement of the events in question to me. May it be entered into the court record?
Very well, Mr. Edgeworth, but I'm mystified to the relevance of this incident to the case on trial.
Your Honour, every aspect of this case has borne some resemblance to SL9. I can't possibly think of a more relevant case.
Point well made. Carry on, Mr. Edgeworth.
Thank you. Now, Miss Skye, in your statement, 2 years ago you said that Joe Dark attacked you in your sister's office. You go on to say that Neil Marshall arrived in time to stop Dark from laying a hand on you, and you were there at the precise moment he was killed.
That's right.
I'd like you to tell the court anything you can remember about what happened when Neil Marshall entered the room. No detail is too small.
Okay, but there isn't much I can say. The room was in darkness the whole time. I could only see dim shapes moving around. From the noises I heard, I could tell that there was a fight going on, but there was a fierce storm happening outside. I couldn't hear well enough to know who was winning. Suddenly, lightning struck outside the window, and the whole room was lit up. The image of what I saw has been imprinted on my memory, and I've been trying to forget it ever since.
You have my sincerest apologies, Miss Skye, but I'm afraid I will need to have you testify to the court about this image.
Joe Dark was standing with his knife raised over Neil Marshall, who was on his knees in front of him. At that moment, instinct took over. I ran as hard as I could at Joe Dark and knocked him over, but it was too late to save Mr. Marshall. After that, everything went blank.
Thank you, Miss Skye. I believe at the time you were too traumatized to testify about it in court.
That's right, I couldn't even speak when I was interviewed by the police, but I did draw a picture of what I saw.
You did. But that can't be right. No picture ever reached me.
Perhaps not, but it definitely exists.
How do you know?
Because I'm holding it.
But how, Mr. Wright? We didn't find...
The detective who interviewed you clearly had a shortage of scrap paper.
the SL9 evidence list.
But that can't be. I have the evidence list right here.
Part of it, Mr. Edgeworth. But at some point, the 2 pages of the SL9 evidence list were separated, and only that one reached you.
Good God! You mean there truly was a forgery?
But if that half was torn off before it reached me, then only someone on the investigation team can be responsible.
Edgeworth, I understand your distress, but right now my concern is the drawing on this sheet. You haven't been completely honest with us, Emma.
Yes, I have.
Right, this is ridiculous. Why would she lie?
Because she didn't realize she was doing it. You told us that when the lightning struck, you saw both figures clearly, but we can see from the drawing that wasn't the case. You saw only the silhouette of 2 figures, one of them holding a knife, and you naturally assumed that he was Joe Dark.
But Mr. Wright, who else could it have been? Dark was only one who had a knife.
And there we have our second problem. The knife in this picture has a broken tip.
Yes, just like the one that was found when the detective arrested Dark. The same one that Lana hid in Mr. Edgeworth's car exhaust.
You're right, this knife was found at the scene of the crime. But you see, Neil Marshall's autopsy report confirms that he was killed by a single stab wound. And when we add this to the equation, we find ourselves with a contradiction.
What is that?
Your Honor, this is the tip of Joe Dark's knife, which was found embedded in Neil Marshall's back.
But that means...
It means that the knife broke when Neil Marshall was stabbed, not before. Which means the knife in this picture should be whole.
Then the witness must have been mistaken in what she saw.
That's the simple explanation, Your Honor, but I'd prefer to think outside the box a little. Could there have been a second knife there that night?
Miss Skye, where's that picture you showed me? Spot on right. There was another knife at the crime scene. And it fits the facts perfectly. One that's been under our noses this whole time.
Brilliant! The King of Prosecutors trophy!
Which Marshall was given that very day. It's not unreasonable to assume he was still carrying it when he encountered Dark.
Would someone please explain?
At present, the King of Prosecutors trophy has only a broken shield on it. But at one point, it had a knife on it as well. No one knows what happened to that knife. All we know is that Neil Marshall was the last prosecutor to hold it before the knife went missing. And I think I've just found our answer. The night he died, Marshall must still have been carrying his trophy. And before picking a fight with Dark, he must have detached the sword to defend himself with. The sword was broken when it was made, and it fits the drawing perfectly.
But if that's true, then the man holding the knife in the drawing is...
Mr. Marshall.
I'm afraid so, Emma. Marshall was superb at self-defense,